Like I told you before, we'd like to talk about Elvis's redneck chic, and what your opinion was that he was as outrageous as Liberace, and yet his approach to personal style was just encompassed by a whole generation of teenage males. Why do you think that that was? Why did people pick up on that? Why did they want to look like him?
What was his redneck chic?
Well, he was this country hillbilly boy that, teenage American males all across the country decided to, take up on that look and just want to look exactly like him. He wasn't a city boy. He was, just totally country. And all of America wanted to look like him. The women loved him, the men loved him. Why do you think that they all wanted to look like him?
Probably because he looked kind of tough. I think people kind of like that sometimes.
Okay, when Pat asked you to start with where we can cut into the video, if you could just say, people wanted to look like Elvis because he looked tough, the black leather jacket was, it was his look that other people wanted to encompass, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if you could just say that again, people wanted to look like Elvis because he looked tough.
Okay. Oh.
If you could just say that, please.
Okay. I think people wanted to look like Elvis because he looked tough.
Okay. The Beatles' first lapel suits and pointy-toed Beatle boots, the tendencies of teenagers all over America to take that look as well. Why do you think that with the Beatles that people wanted to copy that look also? I mean, this was Europe, this was America. What was special about the way that they looked? If you could talk about their haircuts, their suits, the whole look altogether.
Yeah, I think people wanted to look like the Beatles because they were the first people to look different for maybe a century. Because their hair was different and their clothes were kind of different and their shoes were pointed, and people like that.
Okay. Can you talk with us about the mod and Carnaby Street looks, the designers who were designing, the influences, talk about Mary Quant and that whole thing. Can you give us your views on that, what you remember about it?
Yeah, well, what I remember about the Carnaby Street look was what I saw in magazines, photographs, because I never went there. And I remember, I think Mary Quant was the big designer and Twiggy was the big model, and it was all that look and the Beatles and sort of, psychedelic flowered clothes, and that was probably the next thing after the Beatles in their suits and matching hair. Yet the Rolling Stones then came along and made it even better, because I think the Beatles were a little kind of schoolboyish, where the Rolling Stones were more rock and roll.
Great. What the Beatles' psychedelic period, can you elaborate on that at all? The Nehru jackets, the Sgt. Pepper uniforms, do you think that teenagers were picking up on that look as well? Was, the mass audiences going out and buying those things and wanting to look like that too, when they changed their look from the lapel suits and the pointy shoes into, the other look, the uniform look?
Oh, so you're asking why they went to more Sgt. Pepper's look?
Well, I'm saying, do you think that that whole period when they went over to that, do you think that the teenagers were looking to look like the Beatles when they went into the uniform period, when they went into that whole psychedelic era? Was that kind of fashion being bought by people as well?
I don't know if
Okay.
I don't know if that's what people were buying, but I remember I was like tearing up my jeans and trying to get them as full of stuff as I could, and plus at Sgt. Pepper's era, it was more the hippie period, at least in America then, so it kind of made sense that everybody would, looked like Sgt. Pepper's in India and flowers and psychedelic things. And the music inspired it. And the album cover is like the Beatles album cover and the Rolling Stones album cover with the 3D Luminar cover, the Satanic Majesty's Secret Service Request. I can't remember the name. But so it was art and fashion and music, which to me still is what it is.
Sure. Can you talk about the whole thing that came out of like the Jimi Hendrix era, the headbands, the single ear studs for men, the tie-dye look, Janis Joplin, the styles when it moved into that particular way. Can you talk about the clothing at that time? And
Yeah, how do I
okay,
start it and make a full sentence? I can talk about it, just how do I end it?
What did you wear in the 60s?
Kind of ripped up and patched up jeans and this old coat of my brother's.
What kind of person, let's say, in the 60s, when I remember that I was wearing those?
yeah, basically that's how you can get into it. In the 60s, I was wearing whatever.
I'm nervous doing these things, so I can't concentrate, and I forget your questions really fast.
Okay, don't, just relax. We can take all the time that we need, and, don't feel that I'm pressuring you into answering a certain way. Basically, what I'd like to know, in the 60s, there were fringe jackets, there was a lot of tie-dye, there was, just very loose kind of clothing. At that time, what were you wearing? What do you think people were looking to appeal to, and what they were going to the stores and actually buying, and what the designers were designing at that time?
Well, I was like a teenager then, and I was not buying a lot of clothes. I just remember I was trying to get my jeans as messed up and patched and as I could, tie-dye t-shirts, and get my hair as long as I could get it, and borrow clothes, or friends, you trade clothes with your friends, or go to Army Navy stores. All stuff I still do today, but it started then.
Okay. What's your opinion of the gender bender fashion in the 70s? For example, artists like Alice Cooper and, of course, the king, David Bowie, who, completely incorporated that into their stage personality. What are your thoughts on how Bowie used fashion to carve a niche for himself in the popular, thing of the day?
I think it was a big influence, and
Could you start it with
okay.
I'm sorry. David Bowie, used gender bender fashion, blah, blah, or however you want to say it, but just start it with, so we know who you're talking about.
Okay. I think David Bowie and Alice Cooper and T-Rex and all that, the early 70s gender bending sort of glitter rock stuff was another, other than punk, was the biggest thing in the 70s, which, that's the interesting thing about, like, I think this shows on a 30-year period, is it all accumulates and leads it to today, which is 30 years of information. But Bowie and everything he brought to music and fashion and video, it's still really, he made a dent.
Sure. It's still happening, right? Boy George,
Yeah.
in the 80s. It's picked up again. Annie Lennox, who, let's look like a man. Do you think that what do you think the reasons are that, okay, Bowie was doing it in the 70s, and now, like I said, Boy George and Annie Lennox are doing it in the 80s. Do you think this is something that will continue to happen, that men will want to look like women, women want to look like men? Do you think that it's something that people as well, just the general public, are looking to do that also? Or is that just something that is rock-oriented for a stage persona, not, an individual on the street?
Oh, that's
Like Jean-Paul Gaultier, he's showing, he has skirts for men, which, you know, it's a line that he's got. Do you think that the general public is looking to buy fashion that is not necessarily, you know, male-oriented or not necessarily women-oriented? It's more of, you know, a little combination of both, more female-oriented for men and more male-oriented for women. What do you think of that?
I think the general public will take whatever they can get, and you should respect their intelligence and give them more. You know, I mean, I don't think people give credit for being as bright as they are. So so the more the better, you know. And the more new and wild stuff, I think the more people that want it than actually can get it.
Do you
They
think
just
it's influenced by the fact that the rock stars are wearing it? Do you think there's a tie-in between rock and roll and this type of fashion that comes out of it? Do you think there's a tie-in between the people on the streets and the actual rock and roll stars?
yeah, because how would I start that?
Rock and roll influences the general public, you know, something like that.
Rock and roll influences the general public because you can see rock and roll 24 hours a day now, and so it makes fashion and music and art instantly, you know, you just turn on your TV, you know, you get home from school and you turn on your TV, or so you see it all the time, where it's changed everything, because everything's instant. People get what's happening in New York, or, you know, anywhere fast, because of it's great because it makes instantly, you know, music, art, fashion, and those are all combined in videos, accessible to, you know, to people everywhere. So it definitely influences people, I think, even though if they're unaware of it. You know, you're constantly listening, hearing, and seeing what's new. You know, you can get overnight, because what's it take? A couple days to make a rock video, and it takes a while to process it and get it on TV, but not that long anymore. So, you know, you can get what's new this month, and people everywhere can see it.
It's very true. In many ways, the things that you design are rock and roll translated into fashion. Can you talk a little bit about rock's influence on your work, and specifically a few of the people you design for and what you're aiming for when you create stagewear for someone, let's say like Debbie Harry?
Well, rock and roll is my biggest influence, and art, and then the fashion kind of comes as a byproduct of those two. And I'm getting lost. Maybe I should start that again.
Okay. What I said was the things that you design are rock and roll translated. You design for people like Debbie Harry, and what we want to know is what you're aiming for when you create stagewear for somebody like her, or for, you know, any other rock and roller. What is it that you're looking to do? Are you looking for a specific look? Are you looking to fit that particular performer? Or are you looking for a totally new look to just, you know, create a look? What is it that you do when you design for these people?
Oh wait, now I got confused. There was
On
two.
a practical basis, when you meet an artist like Debbie, I mean, how do you sit down and decide what she should be wearing? How do you visualize her look? Do you listen to her music specifically for what she's going to play, and then say, this is how I feel what you're doing, this is how I would visualize it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you could start it, when I design for Debbie Harry, I'm looking to whatever it is that you're looking to do. I'm looking to create a new look for her. I've done such and such. Like, can you talk a little bit about what have you created?
Oh, I know. I can answer this whole thing just one big answer.
Yeah.
Like, rock and roll is the biggest influence on me and the work that I do, and like Debbie Harry's always been a big influence, and because and wait, I can't answer this.
Okay, just take your time. you want to separate things, I mean, feel
Yeah.
free to just...
Maybe we can go back to that one.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll start from the beginning. I'll read the question over to you. In many ways, the things that you design are rock and roll translated into fashion. So, you know, we're taking the music and we're just moving it into the fashion world. If you could talk about rock and roll's influence on your work.
Okay, stop there.
Okay.
Okay, rock and roll is the biggest influence on my work, and I'm gonna have trouble on this one. I know I can't.
Okay, just relax. What I'm just trying to do is to take rock and roll and fashion and what you design and have you come out and say, you know, how one influences the other and what the actual outcome is, which is your designs and what the kind of looks that come out of that.
Right. Well, rock and roll is the biggest influence on my work, and I'd say Debbie Harry and Andy Warhol have been the most influential people in my work, and that's rock and art, and those are to me, that's what inspires me. And then that becomes fashion, and I mean, I look at rock magazines, not really fashion magazines, and, you know, that's however that process is out, that's what my work takes on.
When you create something for Debbie, let's say, are you looking to create something that you feel fits her, or are you looking to create a whole new look that will eventually become her because she'll get connotated with that particular style about her? But are you looking to change the way that she looks, or are you looking to just fit in to what you feel that she is?
Oh, I don't know. I don't even want to answer that one.
Okay. Okay. Someday, everyone's going to look like a rock star. Will street fashion and rock fashion be indistinguishable? Or do you think that we're already at that stage where rock and roll performers, people on the street, look like the rock and roll people that are up there on stage?
I don't think it's gotten quite that far yet, but I think as time moves on, it gets closer and closer to the year 2000, people in video and life and art will be more and more blurred. And at least in cities, I think it's going to be more and more sort of Blade Runner, Road Warrior, just because of what's happening to society and communication. And I mean, it seems to me as technologies and everything gets more advanced, yet society's become more and more broken down. It's kind of like the old and the new, and everything's crumbling and rising at the same time. So it's great. It's real interesting to me, and it's creatively definitely. Interesting.
So in other words, you think that there will be more of a fusion in the future between outrageous stage wear and the street fashion that there is, but it's not at that point yet. There's still a difference between what people are wearing on the streets.
Yeah.
You know, personalities.
Yeah, I think it'll become more and more blurred just because of what's happening in the world.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna stop for a minute. Penny? Yeah. Penny's here.
Okay.
How's it going?
I think it's going well. You just have to remember that when we cut into it, and what you're doing,
Try to make
you're
sentences.
taking a specific phrase and you're starting it so that we can use it. Penny still like Stephen Srrouse?
Thank you.
Just cool out.
Okay.
It's not that serious.
Do you think that's something that you could see in the future, where everybody is that's what the ruling aesthetic is, as far as fashion goes, rock?
I don't think anything will ever be so. I mean, not in life. I mean,
Could
it's
you
nice.
say
It'd be
maybe
great for a
one day
movie.
everyone will look that way for us?
In the movies.
I'd like for you to write, but could you say that? Could you just say, and I know it's not literally true, but could you say, it's all coming together and one day, you know, street fashion and rock fashion are merging, and that at some point you can see, you could visualize everyone looking like a rock star?
No, because I don't really believe it.
No?
Uh-uh.
But here you are.
Yeah, but I don't want to say such a big statement like that.
Okay, it's a long statement too. All right, let's see.
What do you see when you go out to a club at night?
I don't know. I mean, I don't go out to clubs that much. Actually.
There's an interplay between street fashion and rock. Who's imitating who there, do you think? Do you think rock stars are really doing what they see in the street, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, I think it's both ways. That really the street.
Tell me what they'll start and say, I think both
Oh.
street knows, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. Tell me how to open it.
Here.
I'm having trouble opening these.
Only you.
How do I open that sentence then?
Street fashion and rock fashion.
Okay, street fashion and rock fashion. Rock and roll in the street, they influence each other. I mean, I don't think you can say rock's all inspired by the street, or definitely the street's not all inspired by rock. But I think they both look to each other, especially the rock to the street.
Now tell me something. In the old days, the cult figures, the pop figures were movie stars. And if you were looking to somebody as a role model for fashion, you looked at socialites, the people that run the tabloids, and movie stars. You looked in your photo play. Now you're a kid. Where are you looking? Am I looking in Cream magazine to see what I want? What's glamorous? What I want to wear on Friday night?
I would.
But tell me that.
Oh.
Because you said you looked in rock magazine. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. That is your inspiration that turns you on to see that.
Yeah, if I wanted to see fashion, I would pick up a rock magazine today. How's that?
And just, tell me, do you think kids do that? Or are there kids
I don't
all
know.
over America who are looking at this stuff? And what I'm trying to go for here is I think that, just as you say, real fashion, any kind of fashion that reflects anything that's really happening, does in some way spring from rock and pop. And not everybody acknowledges that, but I think that's where it's coming from. Can you tell me a little more about that from your point of view?
Let me just think about that for a minute.
Just tell me, you're a kid, I'm a kid, and I'm 15, and I want to know what to put on to go to the Palladium.
Yeah, if I was a kid and wanted to know what to put on, I would turn on my favorite video station, and rather than look at a fashion magazine.
Right.
I'm not so good at this. I'm kind of nervous.
No, don't worry about anything. It's fine, because there's plenty of stuff that you've said that's good.
Yeah,
I'm just looking for specific
you just need a
things
couple things, right?
The thing that Joyce was asking you before about Debbie Harry, I think what she was saying was, do you ever consciously create a particular image for her? She was real punk there for a while. She was real sexy. Would you ever go in before the fact and say, I want to give her, I want to do some sort of transition, like when her hair was big, when they did what was it, that Safari album, whatever it was, where you'll actually invent something new for somebody? Because what I would like to trace is, you're inventing something new for her, she wears it, I see her, I wear it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever do that?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Anything you can think of that you did for her that was just not particularly her, but it was right?
Well, yeah, the first thing I did for her was this little
For who?
Debbie.
First thing I did for Debbie.
Was this leotard we found that was knit, and we cut it up and made it into a mini dress, and she wore it with black tights and over-the-knee boots, and that was in 1975, and it's kind of the basis of her whole look, and still I think it's like a real rock and roll fashion thing. Still,
Right, absolutely a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, it is. Where do you think things are going right now? Do you see any one particular reigning point of view with popular fashion, rock fashion? Is there one thing, or is it just all glommed together?
I think it's all just everything, but for me, what looks like wait a minute.
Like in the 60s, everybody wore jeans, everybody was hippie, everybody had fringe. I mean, like you really knew what to do. There were rules, you know. In the 70s, early 70s, it was glam. You cross-dressed, you were glamorous, you were beautiful, makeup. In late 70s punk, is there anything, like when we look back at the 80s, what was this? What will it have been, do you think?
Well, to me, the people that look the best are the hardcore kids, and to me, the music's the best, and it's like the heavy metal of the 90s.
Hardcore meaning punk and mohawks and
Yeah.
kind of stuff? But you know, there's also real hardcore fashion too. Like, to me, you're not punked. You know, like this is a major fashion statement, if you will. You know, that goes beyond that. That goes beyond like a biker or slam dance kind of look. You know, what is that? It sort of started. Remember the Blitz stuff from England, which never really hit here, but it's sort of that where it's glamorous while being tough at the same time. You know what I mean? It's like Cyndi Lauper is sort of tough and good looking simultaneously. Do you think that's true? Can you see that?
Yeah, but you know what? I don't really want to say much more. I'm kind of nervous. Do you think you have enough from what we've done?
Yeah, sure. If you don't want to, I mean, you know, we'll stop.
Unless there's something else you want to ask me.
Well, let me see if we've got anything else that would be easy here.
What musician do you think has the hottest look right now?
Right,
I'm just curious.
and say the name.
What was the last thing that stuck in your head when you saw them?
Suicidal Tendencies,
Really?
a band I saw the other night.
How were they dressed?
I guess I'm finished. I don't want to say anymore. I'm really like kind of at it. I don't do this too often, and I try and
Okay.
I hope you got enough from what you've done.
Okay.
You think you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get something.
Great.
I know it's hard. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's good.
Thank you.
About the way that they looked. If you could talk about their haircuts, their suits, you know, the whole look altogether.
Yeah, I think people want to look like the Beatles because they were the first people to look different for maybe a century. You know, because their hair was different and their clothes were kind of different and their shoes were pointed, and people like that.
Okay. Can you talk with us about the mod and Carnaby Street looks, the designers who were designing, the influences, you know, talk about Mary Quant and that whole thing. Can you give us your views on that, what you remember about it? And
Yeah, well, what I remember about the Carnaby Street look was what I saw in magazines and photographs, because I never went there. And I remember, I think Mary Quant was the big designer and Twiggy was the big model, and it was all that look and the Beatles and sort of, you know, psychedelic flowered clothes, and that was probably the next thing after the Beatles in their suits and matching hair. Yet the Rolling Stones then came along and made it even better, because I think the Beatles were a little kind of schoolboyish, where the Rolling Stones were more rock and roll.
great. What the Beatles psychedelic period, can you elaborate on that at all? The Nehru jackets, the Sgt. Pepper uniforms, do you think that teenagers were picking up on that look as well? Was, you know, the mass audiences going out and buying those things and wanting to look like that too, when they changed their look from the lapel suits and the okay. Like I told you before, we'd like to talk about Elvis's redneck chic, and what your opinion was, that he was as outrageous as Liberace, and yet his approach to personal style was just encompassed by a whole generation of teenage males. why do you think that that was? Why did people pick up on that? Why did they want to look like him?
What was his redneck chic?
Well, he was this country hillbilly boy that, you know, teenage American males all across the country decided to, you know, take up on that look and just want to look exactly like him. He wasn't a city boy. He was, you know, just totally country. And all of America wanted to look like him. The women loved him, the men loved him. Why do you think that they all wanted to look like him?
Probably because he looked kind of tough. I think people kind of...
Pointy shoes into, you know, the other look, the uniform look?
Oh, so you're asking why they went to more Sgt. Pepper's look?
Well, I'm saying, do you think that that whole period when they went over to that, do you think that the teenagers were looking to look like the Beatles when they went into the uniform period, when they went into that whole psychedelic era? Was that kind of fashion being bought by people as well?
I don't know if
Okay.
that... No, I mean, I don't know if that's what people were buying, but I remember I was like tearing up my jeans and trying to get them as full of stuff as I could, and plus at Sgt. Pepper's era, I mean, it was more the hippie period, at least in America then, so it kind of made sense that everybody would like that sometimes.
Okay, when Pat asked you to start with where we can cut into the video, if you could just say, people wanted to look like Elvis because he looked tough, the black leather jacket was, you know, it was his look that other people wanted to encompass, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if you could just say that again, people wanted to look like Elvis because he looked tough.
Okay. Oh.
If you could just say that, please.
Okay. I think people wanted to look like Elvis because he looked tough.
Okay. The Beatles' first lapelless suits and pointy-toed beetle boots, the tendencies of teenagers all over America to take that look as well. Why do you think that with the Beatles that people wanted to copy that look also? I mean, this was Europe, this was America. What was special